Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on a snowy Marcus Street in Corning, hitting the ground running with a wave already. Thank you very much. We've got a couple comments from viewers. Obviously, it was a big night for former President Donald Trump, receiving 51.1% of the support. We're going to be talking with former Congressman and current chair of the Steuben County Republican Party, Joe Sempolinski, in just a few moments and kind of dissect all those numbers. Before that, a couple of updates. I received this yesterday in reference to a conversation we were having where Elizabeth Warren was complaining that those in Washington are not getting paid enough. And I asked for your opinion on that. I think, what was it, $174,000 a year? This from a viewer. How on earth can they bellyache about their pay? First, because they campaigned for the position. That's a very good point. And what all the perks do they receive? They have to get basically an expense account funded by the U.S. taxpayers. Good point. Yes, you did campaign for the job. That's a solid note. Also, as an update, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was released from the hospital after being treated for complications from a prostate cancer surgery. I know he didn't tell the president. We were talking about that all last week. I know he said something about how he'll continue to work from home for the time being. So that was just an update. Yes, Trump easily won in Iowa yesterday at 51.1% support, followed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at 21.2%. So that's a rough showing for Nikki Haley at 19.1%. I'm not sure how they'll be able to spin that. It actually caused Ramaswamy, who was at 7.7%, to end his campaign and endorse the former president. The 77-year-old Trump recorded the biggest margin of victory in the modern history of the Iowa GOP caucus, dating back to 1976, and became the first Republican candidate to get more than 50% support in a contested caucus. I was wondering going into last night, I mean, they called it instantly, but I was wondering if he would break that 50%. That was kind of a big milestone, if you will. That was something that I know he was looking for, because you heard me say it, that if he didn't have big numbers like he received, the media would be able to downplay it as well. This is the end. Even if he won by 30 some points, they were still going to say that. So with this 51%, so nearly beat DeSantis by 30, that's kind of tough for the media to spin it. The former president said, "I want to congratulate Ron and Nikki for having a good time together. We're all having a good time together. I think they both actually did very well. I really do. I think they both did very well. I really think this is time now for everybody in our country to come together. We want to come together, whether it's Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative. It would be so nice if we could come together and straighten out the world and straighten out the problems and straighten out all the death and destruction that we're witnessing." So that is the former president weighing in on his victory. It's kind of a low-key victory celebration, not as rally-esque as you may have expected. The media has been pretty interesting. That Trump's landslide Iowa win is a stunning show of strength after leaving Washington in disgrace, said Stephen Collinson. I don't know. He shattered the record. It's as simple as that. Biggest win in the history of Iowa Republican caucuses at 51.1%. We're going to talk about that with the former Congressman, Joe Sempolinski, in just a moment. Weigh in on all that. If you have any questions for the former Congressman and current chair of the Steuben County Republican Party, of course, get those questions in. I will warn you, it's a little snowy out there, so please be careful on your way into school or your way into work. Let's take our first break, and when we come back, the former Congressman. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. A beautiful snowy day here on Marcus Street in Corning, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Our guest this morning, former Congressman and current chair of the Steuben County Republican Party, Joe Sempolinski. Hey, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank.
Well, it was not only a big win for the former president last night, it was a big win for the Buffalo Bills.
It's just a lot of wins for some people.
Yes.
Bills look good. Trump got probably the best possible outcome he could get. And some people, looked strong
Yes.
and then went off a cliff. We're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and Governor Ron DeSantis.
Yes.
So,
Well, you've got to. My thought is at least he got second because the media was pushing it as if Nikki Haley was going to get second.
that's what I meant by the best possible outcome for Trump.
Yes.
Because if Haley had got ahead of DeSantis going into New Hampshire,
Right.
you could have made a very strong argument that perhaps DeSantis would have listened to that, hey, there just is no path to victory, need to drop out, and then consolidating support for people that aren't voting for Donald Trump behind Nikki Haley. Because Trump was, I think, about like 51%.
Right.
He's certainly not going to, I don't think, be that high in New Hampshire. So the more candidates are still in the race, the better it is for Donald Trump. You saw Ramaswamy drop out after Iowa. So the fact that clearly Haley thinks, oh, I'm going to win New Hampshire and that's going to spark me into South Carolina and blah, blah, blah. And DeSantis is going, well, I'm second. I came in second. So as long as those two are splitting 40% of the vote,
Right.
Trump's going to romp through this. I think the chances of Trump becoming the nominee went up dramatically yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Newt Gingrich said he is. He is a nominee, is what Newt Gingrich has thought of at this point. There's no denying it.
You'd have to have a very bizarre set of events. You'd have to have something where Haley and DeSantis this week, like today,
Right.
like form some sort of alliance, somehow win in New Hampshire, and then the next state is South Carolina. But Trump's up 30 in South Carolina on the former governor. And this is analogous to where in the first time he ran, I remember him winning the Florida primary over Marco Rubio. And there was a lot of people in the pundit class going, oh, you can still have this, you can still have that. And I remember going, well, if Marco Rubio can't get within 10 points of this guy in his home state, who's going to beat him?
Right.
That's sort of the feeling where you have a guy who had every resource imaginable. Jeb 2.0, Ron DeSantis. Jeb's back.
Yeah.
In a little different format. And all the resources in the world. And he dumps them all into one. He puts all in one place.
Yeah.
And he barely gets second, and he loses by 30.
Right.
So if Ron DeSantis, with all those resources on one place at one time, can't get within 4 touchdowns of Donald Trump, what's going to happen on Super Tuesday when Trump's up 60 in the national polls? And so in this case, decisive win for Donald Trump. I mean, I think it's the largest win in a contested Republican Iowa caucus.
It is. Yes.
By a large margin. Haley and DeSantis say they're staying in. It's going to keep the vote split. That's the non-Trump vote. So I would say at this point it's 99.99% chance that Trump is in it. And I think, and now I'm getting inside people's heads, I'm speculating, I think these other folks are staying in on the off chance something goes weird with Trump's court cases and what have you. It's sort of a cynical way to run a campaign.
Right. Well, that's why
something horrible happens to my opponent.
Yeah.
I can be there waiting.
And that's kind of what Ramaswamy said yesterday when he announced he was stepping out, that Trump's going to be the nominee. We don't want what could happen with the court case, kind of bringing that out to the forefront. No one wants that.
Right.
So let's move along.
Well, and the thing about the court cases is, so far, the left and the so-called deep state and what have you going after Donald Trump in court has been the single biggest decisive factor in the primary.
Yes, I think so.
The day before Trump was indicted the first time, he was up, I think, 12 or 14 on DeSantis, and he just won Iowa by 30, and he's up 60 nationwide. And what happened, in my opinion, what happened was, what you saw is Trump's got locked down.
Right.
From the jump, he had locked down like 35, 40% of the Republican primary electorate, and there was sort of the next 20% or so that liked Trump, voted for Trump, liked his policies, but were looking at other options to see what might be out there. And then when they saw what was being done to Trump, in my opinion, in a way that really dangerously weaponizes the Department of Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you honestly believe that if he wasn't running for president, that he'd be under all these indictments? I don't really think anybody believes that. And those, 10, 15, 20% of people came home to Trump because they saw him being attacked. So if there weren't these indictments, you'd probably have a situation now where we were down to DeSantis and Trump coming out of Iowa pretty even, and going into a long, drawn-out primary. I think what happens now is Trump wins New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Haley comes in a clear second. They go to she doesn't drop out. The next state is South Carolina.
Right.
They go to South Carolina, and Trump whoops her. I don't know, what did Chris Christie say? She's going to get
smoked or something.
Or
yeah.
And then the race is over before Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think Trump's the nominee before we even get to the Super Tuesday states. So you're talking, we still got a few weeks to go. But that's my prediction for what happened.
So it's not going to be like last go around where we still had Ted Cruz and Trump in New York, and New York actually mattered for once. It looks like probably New York will be out of it.
Well, I mean, Trump was in first. First of all, Trump lost Iowa in 2016. Right. So Cruz wins Iowa, so that changes things a little bit. 2, Trump was winning primary. He was winning everything else. So
right.
He wins New Hampshire, wins South Carolina, but he's winning in the 30s and 40s
mm-hmm.
percentage-wise.
Yeah.
So you could see, all right, he's not getting to 50%. In fact, the first state where he got a true majority in 2016 was New York State.
Oh, interesting.
And so it was a little bit different. Now you're effectively dealing with sort of an incumbent Republican president. And like I said, he's got a lock on 35 to 40% of the electorate, and the next chunk of it is getting more and more open to voting for him. And again, probably the next 30% of the electorate wasn't anti-Trump.
Right.
It's just they were willing to consider other options, and now are coming home to Trump, either A, because of the legal stuff, the abuse of power in his indictments, or B, because they realize the writing's on the wall.
Right.
He's going to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have some percentage that will resist that, but it's a smaller percentage than there was in 2016 when he was one of many candidates, when he was not the incumbent or not a former incumbent president of the United States, and that changes the dynamics a little bit. So I think Trump wins New Hampshire close, and he wins South Carolina fairly big, enough to make a clear win over Nikki Haley, and then at that point the race is over, or effectively
it's all over but the shouting at that point.
Before we get to Super Tuesday state.
We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. And we are back here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. By the way, we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and we're being joined by Joe Semplinsky. Thanks again for being on the program, Joe.
You got 2 on the wave meter already.
Yeah, 2. I actually forgot to add one because there was someone that emailed. I'm glad you said that. We also got another email. I will bet dollars to donuts that there will be more of a push to have Trump removed from ballots moving forward, and that kind of makes sense if he's that dominant.
I think that the intrepid person out in Frankland listening,
yes,
thanks to all the viewers.
Yes, of course.
I think you're probably right. I mean, you've already seen that the folks on the left, they've written the obituary on Donald Trump many times over the last 8 years.
Yeah, how many times, I wonder?
Oh, this is what's going to get them.
Yeah.
And they've reached the point where they're willing to abuse the justice system, and that has only been rocket fuel to his campaign, both primary and general. Right now he's up about a point or so in the general, and they've now reached the point where, all right, we're just going to try and remove him from the ballot. And it's not hypothetical. There's been, you've got Maine, you've got Colorado. And so there's certain elements of the Democratic Party that are so freaked out.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be more freaked out now that they saw there's nothing theoretical.
Right.
Trump is, in this very dominant position. There's going to be, I think, a couple things that happen now. They're going to be interesting. One is there an increased push to remove him from the ballot? I think that has a massive backlash with independent voters because they've been running around since January of 2021 saying Donald Trump is a threat to democracy.
Right.
Now, those same people are going to say, you can't vote for the candidate of your choice. Voting for the candidate of your choice to run the country is the definition of democracy.
It really is.
So people are trying to save democracy are saying the leading candidate for president, no, can't vote for him.
Right.
So if they do that, if that becomes a real push, Donald Trump beats Biden by like 10.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be a landslide for Trump. I mean, the last time that a major candidate was denied ballot access was Abraham Lincoln in the South in the election of 1860.
Wow.
There's only one precedent for this, and it's a pretty nasty one. The second thing that's going to be interesting is if it becomes so clear that Trump is doing so well in the Republican primary, which I think it has, and the polls have tightened a little bit in the general election, but Trump's still up.
Yeah.
If that continues, there's going to be some real conversations in the Democratic Party about should Joe Biden be the Democratic nominee. And the only thing that protects him, and we've discussed this in the past, is there's no clear, competent successor.
Right.
If Nikki Haley was even a C- vice president, she would be the nominee right now. And
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. You said Nikki Haley.
Oh, well, sorry. That's Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
If Kamala Harris was a C- vice president, she'd be the nominee right now.
Yes.
If Nikki Haley
switched parties.
Yeah, right. Sorry about that. So if my point is about Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
If Kamala Harris was competent, she'd be the nominee right now. There's no clear successor.
No.
So even if you want to get rid of Biden, where do you go?
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom's begging for it. I don't know if that works. There's talk about Michelle Obama. I don't know if that works.
They always throw her name around. Like Oprah always gets thrown around. It seems like an every year tradition at this point.
Yeah, I think it's because they don't have a record.
Right? Yeah.
There's sort of somebody that everybody on the left sort of likes.
Yeah.
But there's nothing you can point. They've never had to make a policy decision.
Right.
Right. Because Michelle Obama's never held government office. Right? So she's never voted on a bill.
No.
She's never made an administrative decision. She's never done something that angers somebody.
Right.
And if you are the president, or if you're a member of Congress, or if you're a senator, your job is to make decisions.
Right.
That's what you do.
Right.
And every time you make a decision, somebody doesn't like it.
Somebody's mad. Yeah.
And inevitably, you start making decisions that split your own coalition. I think you're seeing it right now, Biden, with how does he handle Israel, Gaza.
Yeah.
Right, where you have certain elements of the left that are vehemently pro-Israel, and certain elements of the left that are vehemently pro-Gaza. You start making decisions, and it wears on you over time. So, in that sense, a Michelle Obama or an Oprah Winfrey or somebody like that is. They don't have that around them, and I think to some degree, Donald Trump in 2016 was like that, where he's coming in a fresh outsider or whatever.
That's a good point.
So I think that's where that comes from. But there's no clear rising, up and coming next generation politician, and the reason we know that is a guy that's 147 years old became president of the United States.
Yes.
4 years ago.
Right.
Because they didn't have anybody.
They don't have anybody
Other than him.
And I mean,
it's not like somebody suddenly sprung up
right
in the last 3 years.
And that almost makes Gavin Newsom look almost to the point of pathetic sometimes, because he's running this presidential campaign and no one wants him, apparently, because
I'll tell you what really makes Gavin Newsom look pathetic. All the poop on the streets of San Francisco.
Well, yes.
And all the people fleeing California.
Yeah.
And his general incompetence at life.
That's a good
point. Is what make Gavin Newsom look pathetic. In addition to what you just said,
you're not wrong. Yeah, right. Yeah. We got to take another short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Our beautiful view of Market Street, where we film Frankly Speaking live from the Hesselson studio. Welcome back. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we have Joe Sempolinski joining us by Zoom. Joe, I know you're a political beast. You study this stuff. This is kind of something you like. Doesn't it stink when you had the popcorn out last night and they called it at 8:30?
they called it very, very quickly.
It was good for me as I go to bed very early, but at the same time, I'm going, oh, man, give me a minute to kind of take this all in.
Well, I think it was just sort of, you realized just how much Trump was going to win by.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For them to call it that early. Because remember how a caucus works.
Yeah.
8 o'clock is when, like, the doors, not doors open, but when the process starts.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're, you'll have a bunch of people in some random high school auditorium, and somebody from each campaign can speak for a couple minutes, and then you write it, you circle. I saw like a sheet of paper and posted where you just sort of circle the name, and some teller counts it. So if you have like, if you're on some college campus,
right,
and there's only 8 Republicans that show up, well, the whole thing will be over in 5 minutes.
Sure.
So I think they were basing the call on one. They had exit polls that showed, in this case, entrance polls rather than exit polls, but showed how dominant Trump was, and you started to get some results from some of the smaller caucus sites that matched that. So they called it. And so when they called it, some of these bigger caucus sites, you were potentially like listening to DeSantis's surrogate, say whatever, or Haley's surrogate, say whatever. And so DeSantis's campaign was making a stink that, they called it, and people were walking out and said, I was on. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's if he had lost by like 8.
Yeah, sure. Then you could really say
have like a point.
Yeah.
Dude lost by 30.
30.
It doesn't matter what the heck happened.
You had to have a lot of people hear that called already to make a difference.
I mean, that's, that's I think there's some sour grapes happening there. But it's a situation where it was just reflective of how clear it was. But I think it was like 27 minutes after 8 o'clock. Like some of I think CBS called it, I saw first, and then the other ones jumped on within like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You had every major outlet calling it for Trump, and then it took a lot longer to determine for sure who came in second, because that was a lot closer, and of course dealing with smaller numbers, so you could have a little bit more flex there. But it's it was a dominating victory, and you don't see things called that quickly. No. That often when you're talking about what's supposed to be a competitive race. Usually it's like on general election night, and it says, the Democrat won Vermont, and the Republican won Wyoming, and you can call it right away. Whatever. But those aren't the ones that decide the election.
And I thought Trump's speech was a pretty, I don't know, low key or not. It wasn't a Trump rally.
No, and I think, Trump is somebody who does not shy away, obviously, from attacking his opponent of the moment. But Trump's not somebody that's mindless about that. He's a very, very smart guy. And so he realizes now, this in his mind, probably correctly, barring, again, some sort of wacky circumstance, the primary's over. This was it. He put a legitimate number on the board. It's not polls. It's not fundraising numbers. It's not theory. People actually voted. Right. And so in his mind, the primary's over. And so he has to unify the Republican Party.
It's smart, yeah.
And there's a threat to him there in the general election. The primary, again, he's probably right. The primary's over.
Yeah.
But, he's going to need to bring into the fold, that chunk of the Republican Party that is really skeptical about him coming back to the White House. Now, I don't think it's a very large chunk, but it exists, and he's going to need them to defeat Biden. Because one, Biden's an incumbent president.
Sure.
He's got these other things going on that are
big fundraising haul. Yeah.
So he's going to need to unify, and I think that was a very, very, very smart tone to take. It's a lot easier for people who are DeSantis or Haley voters, to come around and come to terms with the fact that their candidate's not going to win if the other guy is going, all right, they did all right, whatever, as opposed to, attacking them at this point. There's no point in attacking them at this point. They've already been defeated, and he needs something from them. Not necessarily something from them, but he needs a lot from their supporters, because, DeSantis and Haley got 40% of the vote.
Right.
40% is a lot. That together. So he's still at the 51. So he needs those 40% of people, or almost all of them, to come along his way, and not, not sort of. I don't think a lot of them would vote for Biden.
No.
But you may have one say, "Oh, forget it, I'm going to stay home." And the tone he struck was a very intelligent decision to make.
And no matter what the media said, it proved to be an intelligent decision as well to skip the debates. I know the media was telling us that, no, he has to do this. It was a great move.
I mean, when I was running for Congress, I ended up winning by like 6 or 7 or whatever.
Right.
And I knew I was ahead. And there was, a decision to make. All right, do I debate? Do I not debate? I debated. I won debate.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought that was the appropriate thing to do. When you're up that much, we were up 50, 60 nationwide. We were up 30, whatever in some of the early states. Do you really need to debate? And then the other thing is, Donald Trump is Donald Trump, where if he shows up somewhere, and this has been the case since, for 40 years,
right.
Every newspaper, every TV station covers it. So him being there would have, tripled the ratings of these things, and given his opponent's platform. By him not being there, it sucked all the oxygen out of the room.
Right.
And I gotta be honest, I didn't watch any of this debate.
No, me either.
I'm as political junkie
I know.
as possible. I know I'd watch highlights afterwards, but
Yep.
I didn't sit down and sit there and watch an entire debate. You know why? Because none of those people are going to be president of the United States.
No.
So what's the point?
I know. It really felt like I actually thought that DeSantis, Gavin Newsom was more entertaining because there was something there, right?
There was at least a contrast in ideology.
Yeah.
Right. There was at least a discussion as opposed to sort of, where to tepidly step around whether Trump's here or not.
Right.
And if somebody like me is going, that's not appointment television.
Right.
Who's the audience for these things?
Well, and start putting
smart enough to know that, and if he's there, somebody like myself goes, oh, wait a minute, all right, let's see what happens.
Exactly.
Because he could stumble, or he could, solidify himself, or whatever. There was the chance for the primary to change, and instead, this was like, fighting over scraps. Like who's going to come in second and lose by 30.
Yeah.
It's not. I'd rather spend time with my kids.
Right.
I'll catch it on. I'll tune into Frank the next morning.
Exactly.
Listen to what happens, right?
That's all you got to do. We're going to take another short break, but when we come back, what do you think? I'll leave this in your mind. What do you think? Ramaswamy done politically? We'll leave it right there.
No.
Okay. Never mind. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and joining me over Zoom, former Congressman and current chair of the Steuben County Republican Party, Joe Sempolinski. Joe, thanks for being with us. So you think Ramaswamy's not done?
As far as his political future, no. I mean, he's too young, too rich, too well known.
Right.
Now.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
He's somebody who, really didn't have a lot to lose. Right, where he's coming in, he's never run for office before, and he dramatically overperformed what some random business guy should have been able to do. Nobody ever really heard of this guy before he ran for president, and he ends up being somebody who outperforms, governors, outperforms senators, outperforms people who are professional, political people who have won races before. So, just based on that. He has some sort of future. Is he going to be the vice presidential nominee? I doubt it.
Right.
If Trump is elected, is he in the cabinet? Probably. Even if Trump, is defeated, then he's probably got to break. He has. He's somebody who made the most, I think, of his opportunity.
Yes.
And despite over the last couple of days a little back and forth between him and Trump, I think he is somebody who, in his mind, he's probably thinking, oh, I'm going to run for president and win in 2028. I don't know if that's the case.
No.
But does he have a significant future in American politics? Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm older than him. I think he's what, like 38 or something. So he's got like a 40-year time horizon.
I think that was the first time there was somebody that was running that was younger than me. So he lost my vote right there. It's like when LeBron.
It doesn't feel good.
No, it's like when LeBron first got drafted and he was younger than us. That was the first one where you go, oh.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway, Chris Christie, what do you think? So I like that Chris Christie gets caught on a hot mic, and it's good to see he's as arrogant on the camera as off the camera. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Refreshing.
I mean, he was saying, certain other candidates were not ready for this. I think it was Haley who was referring to whatever. You can feel how you feel about Nikki Haley or whatever. But if somebody's proven he's not ready for this,
yeah, a couple times.
It's Chris Christie in national politics. So, we were joking off the air where, Frank mentions Gavin Newsom and I was visceral negative reaction. When we mentioned Chris Christie on Frankly Speaking, the host has a visceral negative
That's
reaction.
true. I can't stand him.
And so, those are, I'm a friend of the show. Some of these folks may not be. And so, Chris Christie, here's what always struck me as sort of phony about his campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying the reason he is running
is
he wants to stop Donald Trump. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Well, isn't running and splitting the vote
I know
the single most influential thing you could do to help Donald Trump? Like, so if your goal is X, and you say, we got to do X, and then you do the one thing that makes X not happen, well, then clearly maybe your goal isn't X, right? So I think this is a guy that has been out of the spotlight, and he is somebody who likes the spotlight and likes attention and likes to, as you mentioned, the hot mic moment, tell everybody how much smarter he is than everybody else. And he wasn't getting enough dose of that. And the best way to get attention is to say you're running for president.
Well, and the best way to get attention in the media is run as a Republican and badmouth Republicans, and you can write your own ticket.
Oh, yeah, he's going to clean up. He's going to make big money as some sort of CNN or MSNBC talking head. They'll pay him $1 million to go on national television and say nasty things about other Republicans. So he's going to be fine. He's there's the gravy train continues. For Chris Christie. When you do that, that's what really rubbed me the wrong way. Is if you really believe something,
right?
Then what he should have done is pick one of the other candidates
and endorsed them, and
just spend all that time running around, supporting them. That it doesn't have to be you, buddy, at the whose name is on the sign.
Right.
That's not how this works.
But that's what he likes.
And I have demonstrated this in very public ways. It's a team sport.
Yes, you have.
It's about the team. It's about the party. It's about the movement. It's about the people more than anything else. And if you feel a certain thing is good or bad for the people, it doesn't have to be you whose name is on the bus driving around New Hampshire.
No.
There are other ways to do it if it's really about the people.
All right, we got to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Oh, there we go. I'm talking live on the air, promoting 25 Words or Less, saying how much I like that show. Joe Sempolinski is our guest on the program this morning. Joe, what do you think? Because you witnessed this, you lived this. Elizabeth Warren came out 2 days ago and said that people in Washington and specifically in Congress just don't make enough money.
That's silly.
Yeah, I thought you would think that.
Members of Congress make plenty of money.
Yes.
And, I'm not saying they shouldn't be paid. I'm not saying they shouldn't be paid well. It's an important job. But they get paid well.
Yeah.
They get paid significantly more than your average citizen gets paid. Do they get paid like a CEO? No, they don't. And they shouldn't.
No.
It should be enough that it's they can focus their time. And there are rules. If you're a member of Congress, there are limits on the amount of outside income you can get, and that's to reduce conflicts of interest. There are certain types of jobs you can't do. You can't do anything as like a lawyer or an accountant or anything where you have a fiduciary responsibility. So there's restrictions. And the idea is, all right, we're going to make an attractive job, but one that's still service, and focus your entire being and for your professional life on serving the people that have elected you. And they make enough money. Right. They do not need a pay raise from where they're at right now. And the idea that they do is sort of, suddenly they're feeling inflation. Well, great. So is everybody else.
Yeah.
And maybe you should do something about it if you're the policymaker. So
right.
I would, as I do in most things, disagree with Senator Warren, who is one of the most misguided people in America.
Right.
And say no. Members of Congress definitely do not need a raise in pay.
I guess you got to give her a little credit because that's got to be one of the least popular things that you could run with.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I mean that's got a poll at like 1%, and those 1% all are members of Congress. Or their family.
Exactly.
Right?
But you mentioned inflation. There's a really good piece I just want to mention quickly at the Post editorial board put it together. I think this term's overused a lot, but it's the grocery stupid. Why the pundits are puzzled by Biden's polls. It does show their elitist attitudes in the media that they can't. They keep telling us Bidenomics is great. But Joe, you know how it is. We talked about this last time. You got to go to the grocery store.
Right.
You've got to get gas in, so they can tell you whatever.
Yeah, this is the disconnect between academic economics and the real world.
Exactly.
Like, oh, inflation's down. Well, yeah, the prices are still going up, but it's going up a little less fast than they were before. So yeah, if you want to say inflation's down, then from a technical standpoint, that's true. But if you're trying to buy a pizza,
right,
or you're trying to buy a hamburger, and you're still paying double what you think you should pay, because your mind is still in February of 2020,
right,
psychologically. Because that's where people are. Well, that's a devastating problem for whoever the incumbent president is. You, an independent voter does not want to vote for the current president to be reelected if they are worried about being able to afford groceries. It's as simple as that. Nothing else matters. They can scream about democracy, they can scream about anything they want. But when that is facing you every single day, you got to put gas in your car and you got to feed your kids, nothing else matters. Period.
No. And that's why I'm glad that the article was put out by the Post. So I'd recommend everybody check it out. Okay, before we take our last break, Joe, I got this question from a viewer. What's your position on auditing the Board of Elections?
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with the audit group in New York, the Citizens Audit. I've interacted, with them, and I've seen their emails. My position all along, for a long-standing position, has been audit everything. Yeah. The only way you get trust in an institution is total transparency. And so you audit every election everywhere. Yeah. Why not? What do we got to lose?
No, I agree. Let's take our last break, and then we'll wrap things up with Joe, so stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I'm being joined by former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. Joe, how about this? This happens every time you're on the program. From a viewer, thank you, Joe. Very entertaining, uplifting, down-to-earth outlook on reality politics. You just can't argue with common sense.
I didn't know my mom was a viewer.
Yeah. Oh, here's what I like. Christie is the epitome of corrupt politicians. That's from a viewer. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk local. There was a kind of something that went a little bit under the radar. We mentioned on the program, and I'm really excited. We're going to be talking with her tomorrow on the program. Kelly Fitzpatrick. It's Steuben.
So Kelly Fitzpatrick is now the chairwoman of the Steuben County Legislature. Yeah. And so this was a change. From the previous administration, and the day she got elected, I put a call into her. Obviously, the party chairman and the legislature chairman are different. The party chairman's political, which is my role, and the legislative chair is the highest elected official in the county. We don't have a county executive in Steuben County. We have a appointed county manager who answers the legislature. So the highest elected official is the chair of the legislature. Kelly's the first woman we've had do it. I think she's very smart. We're going to do a very good job. We had a great conversation. I just wanted her to know that I'm available to her if she needs anything, and to have a line of communication with her. And so we had a great chat, and I'm very excited. I think she's going to do a very good job. She was the vice chair of the legislature last term. She's been in the legislature for a little while now. She's somebody who's experienced. She's from Bath. She's one of the two legislators from Bath, right in the middle of the county. And so I think it's going to be good. I'm glad she's going to be on your show.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I think we're going to see good things coming out of the legislature over the next year here.
Now, Joe, people may not realize it, but now is really a good time to get involved with politics. I know we're talking about presidential, but I'm talking at the local level.
We say that every month, and it's more true this month than most other months, because we're going into petition season. This year, it's statewide and presidential are handled a little differently, so we don't petition for them, but we have to petition to put congressional candidates on the ballot, We don't know what the districts are going to be yet. Probably Nick Langworthy.
Yeah. What a mess.
State Senate, Mr. O'Mara has all of the Steuben County Senate. We're split between 3 assembly districts. We're going to have a judge position up. We're going to have the sheriff up for re-election. He's running for re-election. So there's some important races below President and U.S. Senate that we're going to have, and the way those people get on the ballot is through the petitioning process with the Republican committee. So here at the end of next month, that process will begin, and we will, we'll have a meeting, getting all those petitions in order, and Frank will be there, and I'll be there, and
it'll be fun.
Start collecting the signatures, and it is, I wish it was a little later in the year, like it used to be.
Yeah,
it's a little cold, but it is the tangible, legal start of the process of somebody being elected in November, and that runs through your local party committees.
I will say the one good thing about it being so early is that when people open their door, they don't want to get cold, so they normally just sign it real quick and call it a day.
And people are home.
Yes.
That's the other thing. If you knock on a door in March, somebody's home. If you knock on a door in June, maybe,
hit or miss.
Who knows?
What did you think about Hochul signing that even year election thing? I mean, and here's my thought on it. I think you'll probably agree. You look at someone at the small level. Okay, me, I'm town council. I have to run, right? How am I getting my word out if, O'Mara and Phil and the president or whoever are all on the ticket?
Yeah, I think it was a partisan power grab.
Yeah.
They claim it was going to save money, but it doesn't affect city elections.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect certain countywide offices. So you're still going to have off election years. What this really was this was an attack on Long Island. That's where it was coming from. Because Frank's going to win in Irwin. With your, he's going to win in Irwin whatever year. Because Frank's great. But if you are running for town council on Long Island, some of these towns have the population of the city of Boston or Washington, D.C. There's 600-some thousand people. If you're running for county executive, these are offices that have over 1 million people. And that's where the Republican Party in our state has been doing really, really, really well over the last 3 or 4 years. And so there's not a lot of cities, but there's a lot of towns on Long Island. And so to move all of those elections to where they think more Democrats are going to be coming out to vote in the even-numbered years is really cynical politics. So the goal of this, in my opinion, was to kill in the cradle future Republican members of Congress, future Republican statewide candidates, because they never get elected to that first office, especially in Nassau and Suffolk County. So I vehemently disagreed with it. It's not going to save the money they claim it's going to save. And as you pointed out, right now, if you go vote in the odd-numbered year in the town of Irwin, you're voting on town of Irwin issues about who's going to be your county legislator, who's going to be your town board member, these sort of things. If you're going to vote in an even-numbered year, it's an afterthought. You are voting on these ideological issues at the national or state level. And so all you've done is you've taken all the nastiness and the polarization and the ideology at these national and state levels and injected it into every local race. And is that really productive at the town board level? And again, what it's really all about is moving more elections to years where Democrats turn out more. Democrats turn out more in even-numbered years. Republicans keep their, their turnout goes down, and off years it doesn't go down as much.
Exactly.
Well, there's nothing stopping the Democrats from voting. They're just choosing not to.
I know.
And so if you have to sort of trick them into voting for your local candidates, maybe your local candidates aren't very good, and maybe your base voters aren't very, engaged. So that's a problem that the Democratic Party is trying to solve a symptom of their own internal issues. And instead of dealing with the cause, which is trying to put a ticket forward that's going to do a good job instead of what Democrats are doing in the state of New York.
Well, Joe, we are out of time. I think we covered just about everything, don't you?
Absolutely.
So
County,
your thought,
local, state, federal,
everything. So right before we go, so New Hampshire, you're seeing. What do you think?
I think New Hampshire will be closer. DeSantis is going to be a non-factor in New Hampshire. I think Haley is closer, but I think Trump wins close, and then the race ends after Trump wins in South Carolina.
I know they were saying this over and over again, and he signaled that he's not going to. Do you think DeSantis gets out anytime soon or no?
I don't know. Where is he going to win? Where is he going to do better than he just did in Iowa?
That's right.
He could have dropped out last night.
But I think he didn't want to give in to because the media was saying that he was going to do that, and he kept saying, no, I'm not going to do that. So you don't really want to backtrack on
He
that.
should be on a plane right now back to Tallahassee.
Yeah.
And
no one would blame him.
There you go.
Hey, Joe, thanks for giving us so much time this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Join us tomorrow starting at 7 for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.